The story begins in a fast-moving world of business, where every decision can change the course of a company. The focus is on an airline that, at first glance, might seem like just another company in the crowded skies. But this airline is different. It's growing quickly, winning awards for its service, and gaining respect for how it treats both employees and passengers. Behind this success is the CEO, a black leader whose journey to the top has not been easy. He did not inherit wealth, connections, or a golden opportunity. Instead, he built everything with hard work, smart decisions, and a clear vision for what the airline could become. People often underestimate leaders who start from nothing, but he has proven time and again that dedication and strategy can overcome any obstacle. The company's offices are alive with energy. Employees walk quickly down the hallways, discussing flights, schedules, and marketing strategies. Meetings are constantly happening, filled with charts, graphs, and plans for expansion. Outside, airplanes take off and land with precision, a visible reminder of the hard work behind the scenes. The CEO is often seen moving between meetings, checking in with staff, and even listening to frontline workers. He knows that leadership is not just about sitting in an office, it's about understanding every part of the business. His hands-on approach has earned him respect, but also envy. Not everyone in the corporate world is happy to see someone rise based on talent and determination. Among the executives is a white woman who has been part of the airline for a few years. She is ambitious, smart, and capable, but she has her eyes set on the top job. She believes that her experience, her networks, and her position give her a natural claim to leadership. In her mind, the CEO's success seems almost accidental. She notices every meeting he attends, every speech he gives, and she begins to calculate how she could replace him. At first, it's small things, a comment in a meeting, a subtle suggestion to the board, small actions to undermine his authority. It's a quiet power struggle, invisible to most employees, but it's there. The tension begins to build in subtle ways. During meetings, the woman tries to interrupt, challenge, or overshadow the CEO. She expects others to support her, assuming that privilege and assertiveness will carry her forward. But the CEO's calm and confident demeanor makes her efforts less effective. He doesn't fight back aggressively. Instead, he continues to present facts, ideas, and visions that clearly show he knows every detail of the business. His success is not accidental, it is the result of years of dedication, strategic thinking, and hard work. While she tries to take shortcuts and manipulate perceptions, he has earned every bit of authority he holds. Outside the corporate office, the airline is also a story of inspiration. Flights are on time, passengers are happy, and the brand is growing internationally. Every route added, every customer experience improved, is a testament to the CEO's leadership. His story is not just about profits, it's about innovation, fairness, and determination. He has faced skepticism, bias, and doubt, but he continues to prove that leadership is more than a title, it is action, responsibility, and results. People in the company admire him not only for what he has built but for how he treats others along the way. The stage is now set for a clash of ambition and reality. On one side is a woman who believes she can claim what others have built through cleverness and strategy alone. On the other side is a CEO whose achievements are undeniable, whose vision is clear, and whose leadership has changed the airline industry in a meaningful way. The scene is not dramatic yet, but the tension is growing. Boardrooms, hallways, and offices are filled with small moments, glances, comments, and unspoken competition that hint at what is about to unfold. Even at this early stage, the story shows the contrast between entitlement and earned success. One person assumes power can be taken, the other has proven it must be earned. The airline, the employees, and the corporate world around them form the backdrop for a story about ambition, integrity, and the challenges of leadership. It is a story that will not only entertain but also inspire anyone watching or reading. The stakes are high, the players are ready, and the scene is perfectly set for a dramatic turn that will leave everyone involved, and those witnessing it, stunned. From the very beginning, the air in the executive offices was thick with unspoken rivalry. The white woman, ambitious and sharp, began to quietly assert herself in ways that seemed almost invisible at first. She didn't make dramatic announcements or confront the CEO directly. Her tactics were subtle, calculated, and insidious. Every board meeting, every casual conversation in the corridors, became an opportunity for her to shift opinions and plant seeds of doubt. She smiled, nodded, and agreed when convenient, all while carefully observing who might support her ambitions. To an outsider, she appeared professional and cooperative. But behind the polished exterior was a single-minded determination. She wanted the CEO's position, and she would do whatever it took to get it. Meanwhile, the CEO remained completely focused on his work. He was a leader not driven by ego, but by results. Every decision he made, from selecting flight routes to negotiating partnerships, was based on careful analysis and experience. He knew the stakes involved in running an airline, especially one that was rapidly expanding. What he did not know, however, was how closely someone in his own team was watching him, not to learn, but to take his place. The tension began to show in subtle ways. During meetings, the woman would interrupt him with questions designed to challenge his authority, yet phrased in a way that seemed innocent. Occasionally, she would highlight minor flaws in reports or question the CEO's decisions in front of others. She hoped these actions would make her appear more competent, more strategic, and more deserving of the top role. She underestimated, however, the weight of years of experience and the respect the CEO had earned from the board and the employees. His calm, confident responses often left her scrambling for words, and her frustration began to grow. It wasn't just about one-on-one confrontations. The woman also tried to influence the opinions of board members and colleagues, subtly planting the idea that she could do a better job. She sent emails highlighting her achievements, emphasizing her experience in ways that suggested she deserved recognition. She networked behind the scenes, seeking allies among influential executives. Her ambition was like a quiet storm, never openly visible, but slowly shaping the environment around her. Every glance, every comment, every strategic suggestion was calculated to increase her influence. Yet the CEO's presence remained unshakable. He had built the airline from the ground up, navigating countless challenges along the way. Employees admired him not just for his leadership, but for his integrity and vision. Every route he launched, every strategic decision he made, carried the mark of careful planning and dedication. He had faced doubts and prejudice throughout his career, yet his focus on results, fairness, and collaboration always won out. No amount of behind-the-scenes maneuvering could diminish the respect he had earned. As weeks turned into months, the tension escalated. Meetings became battlegrounds where subtle psychological games were played. The woman tried to assert dominance, only to realize that authority is not given, it is earned through actions, knowledge, and trust. Meanwhile, the CEO remained composed, leading with intelligence, insight, and a steady hand. Employees began to notice the difference between ambition rooted in entitlement and leadership grounded in experience. They watched as the woman's frustration grew with every unsuccessful attempt to overshadow him. Outside the walls of the office, the airline continued to flourish. The CEO's decisions brought record profits, improved customer satisfaction, and expanded international recognition. Yet the struggle inside the boardroom mirrored the larger challenges of corporate life, power, perception, and the subtle dynamics that can make or break careers. Every small victory the woman thought she had gained was quickly overshadowed by the CEO's undeniable accomplishments. Her growing desperation became almost palpable, a stark contrast to his calm confidence and unwavering dedication. This power struggle, invisible to the public eye, set the stage for the dramatic events that would follow. It highlighted the tension between ambition and entitlement, between manipulation and earned authority. As the boardroom became the silent battlefield of wills, the story began to reveal a timeless truth: leadership is not stolen, it is proven through action, integrity, and vision. The CEO's unwavering focus on his work, his team, and his airline created a foundation that could not be shaken, no matter how cunning the tactics against him. By the end of this phase, the lines were drawn clearly. The woman had revealed her ambition, the CEO had demonstrated his authority. What remained was the inevitable confrontation that would test not just their skills, but their character, their vision, and their resilience. The tension was no longer subtle, it was a quiet storm brewing, promising a moment when ambition and achievement would collide in ways no one in the company would ever forget. The tension that had quietly been building in the executive offices finally reached a turning point when the CEO unveiled a bold new vision for the airline. It was a plan unlike anything the company had attempted before, an ambitious expansion into international routes, coupled with innovative strategies to improve passenger experience, operational efficiency, and brand recognition. The CEO had spent months meticulously analyzing data, forecasting trends, and consulting with experts across the industry. Every decision was backed by research and insight, reflecting his deep understanding of both the airline business and the challenges of leadership. The white woman, who had been carefully positioning herself to seize the CEO's role, entered the room expecting the usual procedures, small updates, predictable charts, and minor strategy tweaks that could be easily criticized. She had rehearsed her questions and her subtle challenges in her mind, confident that she could outmaneuver him. But what she saw instead left her momentarily off balance. The CEO spoke with authority and clarity, explaining not just the numbers, but the rationale behind every decision. He detailed innovative routes that opened new markets, partnerships with other airlines that would enhance efficiency, and customer experience initiatives that would set the airline apart. His ideas were bold yet grounded in practicality, a combination that was difficult to dismiss. As he presented, the room seemed to transform. Colleagues leaned forward, nodding, asking questions, and taking notes. Employees who had previously whispered about the white woman's ambitions began to quietly recognize the CEO's unmatched expertise. He had a way of turning complex financial and operational data into a story that everyone could understand. His vision wasn't just about profit, it was about building a lasting legacy. For a brief moment, the white woman felt the first real pangs of doubt. She realized that no amount of ambition, charm, or behind-the-scenes maneuvering could replicate this level of knowledge, credibility, and respect. Her first instinct was to challenge him, to assert herself in the way she had before. But as she opened her mouth, she realized that the facts, and the room, were against her. Every argument she could think of seemed trivial compared to the CEO's presentation. He had anticipated potential obstacles, addressed risks, and offered solutions in a way that was impossible to counter. The brilliance of his planning was both intimidating and humbling. She had expected to find weaknesses, but all she saw was preparation, insight, and a vision that was larger than her own ambitions. It wasn't just the content of the presentation that struck her, it was the CEO's presence. There was a quiet confidence, a calm authority that filled the room. He didn't need to raise his voice or make grand gestures, his knowledge and experience spoke louder than any display of power could. Every question he answered, every scenario he discussed, demonstrated a depth of understanding that came from years of dedication and real-world experience. The woman began to realize that this was not just a professional obstacle, it was a revelation. The CEO had built something she could never claim, not through manipulation or ambition, but through sheer perseverance, intelligence, and vision. The board members, who had been quietly observing, exchanged approving glances. It became increasingly clear that the CEO's plan was not only feasible but potentially transformative. His approach highlighted the difference between someone who wants power and someone who has earned it through action. The white woman could see her own efforts shrinking in significance next to the magnitude of what had been presented. She had assumed she could navigate the politics and claim leadership without understanding the depth of the work required. Now, for the first time, she confronted the reality that true leadership was not just about ambition, it was about vision, strategy, and execution. By the end of the meeting, the room had shifted. What had started as a routine strategy session had become a defining moment. Colleagues who had previously been uncertain about the CEO's approach were now inspired, energized, and aligned behind his vision. The white woman, meanwhile, was left quietly reflecting on her miscalculations. She had expected a simple confrontation, but instead faced a level of competence and preparation she could not easily undermine. The unexpected challenge had revealed her limitations and highlighted the CEO's unmatched authority. This moment would later be remembered as the turning point in the power struggle. It was the point where ambition clashed with experience, where assumptions were shattered, and where the true measure of leadership became undeniable. The CEO had not only defended his position, he had elevated it, showing that real leadership is not about holding a title but about creating results, inspiring teams, and turning vision into reality. For the white woman, it was a moment of reckoning. She realized that no matter how clever or ambitious she was, she could not replicate the years of effort, the strategic thinking, or the unwavering dedication that had brought the airline to this point. The room left the meeting buzzing with excitement and admiration, but for her, it was a quiet moment of shock. The CEO's unexpected challenge had done more than defend his position, it had exposed a fundamental truth about leadership, ambition, and the gap between desire and earned success. The tension that had been quietly simmering for months finally reached a boiling point. It wasn't in a boardroom meeting, nor in a casual hallway conversation, it happened in a private office, away from the eyes of colleagues, where words carried more weight than actions, and every glance was a measure of power. The white woman had requested the meeting, ostensibly to discuss operational strategies, but her true intention was clear to both of them, she wanted to assert her claim to the CEO's position. She walked in with confidence, her posture sharp, her tone carefully measured. She believed she could corner him, manipulate the conversation, and force a concession. She had rehearsed the phrases she would use, the questions she would ask, and the subtle challenges she would throw in. The CEO, however, remained calm. There was no hint of fear, no trace of defensiveness. He knew exactly why she had called this meeting, and he understood the subtle game she was playing. Unlike her, he did not rely on manipulation, his authority was rooted in facts, experience, and the tangible results of years of hard work. As she began to speak, attempting to assert her dominance, he listened quietly, letting her words hang in the air without interruption. She tried to sound confident, but beneath the surface, there was a flicker of unease. At first, she approached it diplomatically, framing her statements as questions and suggestions. But as the conversation progressed, she became bolder. She leaned forward, her eyes sharp, and said the words she had been planning for months, "I think I could do this job better than you. You've had your turn, and it's time for fresh leadership." She expected him to flinch, to defend himself nervously, or to engage in a heated debate she could manipulate. Instead, he looked at her with calm, unwavering eyes, and responded not with anger, but with clarity. "I built this airline," he said. His voice was steady, confident, and measured. It wasn't a boast, it was a statement of fact. Every route, every partnership, every decision that made this company what it is today, came from my work, my vision, and my dedication. Leadership isn't about taking a seat, it's about creating the foundation others sit on. The words hit her like a cold wave. She had assumed she could claim power simply by positioning herself, by networking behind the scenes, by undermining his authority. But she had underestimated the depth of his achievements. This wasn't a man who had lucked into success or ridden on connections, this was a man who had built an empire from the ground up. Every argument she could make now seemed trivial compared to the lifetime of work, planning, and resilience that he represented. She tried to counter, to find a flaw, some weakness she could exploit. But there was none. The CEO calmly detailed specific projects he had initiated, challenges he had overcome, and the strategic thinking that had propelled the airline to its current success. He didn't just speak about numbers or profits, he told the story of the company itself, a story that she could not refute. Each example, each achievement, was undeniable. She realized, with growing horror, that her ambitions were irrelevant in the face of his accomplishments. The moment of confrontation was more than a clash of personalities, it was a collision of reality and illusion. She had believed ambition alone could secure her the position, he had proven that vision, execution, and experience were the only true paths to leadership. As he spoke, the room seemed to grow heavier with the weight of truth. For the first time, she turned pale, the confidence she had worn like armor slipping away. The gap between entitlement and earned authority had never been clearer. He didn't gloat, he didn't insult, he simply laid out the undeniable facts of his achievements. And in doing so, he left her with a stark choice: accept reality or continue clinging to an illusion of power that had never been hers. Her silence, the smallest crack in her armor, spoke volumes. The confrontation had revealed not just who was in charge of the airline, but who truly understood the meaning of leadership. By the time the meeting ended, the dynamic between them had shifted permanently. She had walked in expecting to dominate, to challenge, and perhaps even to intimidate. She walked out recognizing, for the first time, the breadth of what she could not claim. The CEO remained as calm and commanding as ever, his position reinforced not by force or politics, but by undeniable evidence of his work, his vision, and his authority. This confrontation marked a defining moment in the company's history. It wasn't about anger or drama, it was about the undeniable truth that leadership cannot be stolen, it must be earned, nurtured, and proven. For everyone who later learned of this encounter, it would become a legendary example of integrity, resilience, and the unshakable power of genuine achievement. The revelation came slowly, almost painfully, yet with undeniable clarity. After the confrontation in the private office, the white woman walked through the hallways of the airline's corporate headquarters with a heavy, almost surreal feeling. Each glance from employees, each casual nod from her colleagues, seemed to underscore a truth she had been reluctant to accept: the airline's success was not hers to claim. Every decision, every route, every expansion plan had the unmistakable mark of the CEO's vision. The realization struck her with a weight she hadn't anticipated: it was not just a professional disappointment, it was a personal reckoning. She began to see, in sharp detail, the depth of what she had underestimated. The CEO's contributions weren't superficial achievements or lucky breaks, they were the result of years of relentless dedication, careful planning, and extraordinary foresight. She remembered the countless late nights he had spent analyzing financial reports, the strategic meetings where he had painstakingly mapped out every route, and the tireless work to build a team that could execute his vision. It wasn't just leadership, it was creation. He had built something from the ground up, and in doing so, he had established a legacy that could not be borrowed, bought, or manipulated. The woman replayed the words from their private meeting over and over in her mind: "I built this airline." Simple, yet profoundly powerful. It was more than a statement, it was a declaration of truth, a culmination of a lifetime of effort that could not be erased by ambition or entitlement. She had spent months, even years, believing she could outmaneuver him through strategy, charm, and subtle manipulation, but now she understood how naive that belief had been. Ambition alone could never replicate experience, vision, or integrity. As she moved through the office, she began noticing details she had previously ignored. Employees discussing upcoming projects spoke with genuine admiration for the CEO's leadership. Teams referenced systems, strategies, and processes he had personally implemented. Even casual conversations among staff reflected a culture he had built, a culture rooted in discipline, innovation, and respect. Every corner of the company carried his fingerprints. She could no longer dismiss his accomplishments as luck or coincidence; they were tangible, undeniable, and everywhere. For the first time, the woman felt a complex mixture of emotions: shock, awe, and a grudging respect she had never expected to feel. The realization was sobering. She understood now that she had been chasing a title, a position, rather than the substance that truly earned it. Leadership wasn't about sitting in a chair or being seen as powerful, it was about creating value, inspiring people, and building something enduring. She had been focused on the wrong metrics: perception, influence, and opportunity, while the CEO had been focused on real, lasting results. The revelation also forced her to confront her own limitations. She began to acknowledge that she had underestimated the CEO at every step. His strategic foresight, emotional intelligence, and ability to navigate both challenges and opportunities far exceeded anything she had anticipated. It was a humbling moment, and for someone so ambitious, it was almost unbearable. Yet beneath the sting of disappointment was a begrudging admiration. She had glimpsed the rare combination of talent, grit, and resilience that defined a true leader, and it left her both shaken and enlightened. As the day progressed, she realized the full implications of the revelation. She could no longer maneuver behind the scenes, planting doubts or subtly undermining him. His position was unshakable, grounded not in politics or privilege, but in the substance of his work. She also began to see the consequences of her earlier actions, not just for herself, but for the company. Every attempt to seize control without earning it had risked destabilizing a culture he had painstakingly built. The recognition of her miscalculation was both sobering and transformative. By evening, the woman was forced to confront a truth she had long resisted: she could never take credit for the airline's success, because it was not hers to claim. The CEO had not merely held a position, he had created the foundation of the company, nurtured it through challenges, and transformed it into an industry leader. Her ambitions, while real and strong, had been misplaced. She realized that her path to success would require a different approach: learning, creating, and earning rather than assuming and taking. The revelation marked a turning point, not just in the power struggle, but in her own understanding of leadership and achievement. She had faced the undeniable truth that ambition without action and vision without dedication were hollow. The airline's success was a testament to the CEO's relentless work, and it left her with a stark but vital lesson: true leadership can never be stolen, it can only be earned. By the end of that day, the air in the corporate headquarters had subtly shifted. Employees sensed the CEO's authority had been reaffirmed, and even those who had previously supported her quietly acknowledged the reality: the airline's achievements belonged to the man who had built them. For the white woman, the revelation was not just professional, it was personal. It was a moment that would stay with her, forcing reflection, humility, and perhaps a deeper understanding of what it truly meant to lead. The moment of shock came not in whispers or private doubts, but in full view of the board and the executive team. It was a quarterly strategy meeting, the kind of gathering that usually hummed with discussion of numbers, forecasts, and routine updates. But on this day, the energy in the room was electric, almost tangible, because the CEO had decided to lay out the culmination of his work, in front of everyone. The white woman, confident in her ability to assert control, walked into the boardroom expecting to dominate the conversation, expecting subtle nods of agreement, expecting to redirect attention toward herself. She had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind. She believed she could sway opinions, perhaps even intimidate colleagues with her charm and carefully constructed arguments. She could not have been more wrong. As the CEO began to speak, there was a quiet intensity in the room. He outlined the airline's achievements, detailing the initiatives he had personally spearheaded: routes launched from scratch, partnerships negotiated in the face of skepticism, innovations in customer experience that had reshaped industry standards. He spoke not with arrogance, but with quiet authority, guiding the room through his reasoning, his vision, and the years of relentless effort behind every decision. Every chart, every statistic, every anecdote was tied directly to his work, leaving no room for doubt about who had truly built the airline from the ground up. The white woman's carefully maintained composure began to unravel. She could feel her confidence slipping, like sand through her fingers, as she realized she had misjudged the situation entirely. Colleagues leaned forward, nodding, taking notes, and asking insightful questions, questions she had hoped to dominate or redirect. The attention she had expected to command was entirely on him. The very room seemed to reinforce the truth she had tried to ignore: this airline, this team, this success, belonged to him. Her face, once calm and controlled, began to betray her inner panic. A slight paleness crept across her skin, subtle at first, but unmistakable to those who knew her well. Every word from the CEO acted like a mirror, reflecting back the gap between her ambitions and reality. She realized, in that instant, that her months of strategizing, her subtle attempts to undermine him, and her belief that she could simply claim power had been futile. She was confronted with the undeniable truth that leadership is not a title to be snatched, it is a responsibility earned through vision, effort, and integrity. The shock deepened as the CEO recounted specific moments of his journey, moments that few in the room had witnessed firsthand. He spoke of late nights spent negotiating contracts with skeptical partners, of navigating crises that could have grounded the airline permanently, and of painstakingly building a culture that prioritized excellence and fairness. The stories were not only impressive, they were irrefutable. The woman could not argue, could not interrupt, could not redirect the focus. There was no place left for her ambitions in the narrative of what had actually been achieved. Around the table, other executives began to sense the subtle shift. Those who had once questioned or doubted the CEO's authority now nodded in recognition of his achievements. The power in the room was palpable, concentrated entirely in the man who had built the airline, while the woman, despite her intelligence and ambition, could do nothing but watch. The contrast between entitlement and earned authority had never been clearer. Her reaction, turning pale, withdrawing into herself, was more than a physical response. It was a symbolic moment, a visible acknowledgement of her miscalculation. In a single instant, she was forced to confront the gap between what she thought she could take and what had actually been created through years of vision, dedication, and relentless work. The room, silent except for the CEO's confident explanations, bore witness to the revelation: power and respect are not demanded, they are earned. By the end of the meeting, the board and staff were buzzing with admiration for the CEO. Every strategy, every decision, every achievement had been laid bare, undeniable in its scope and impact. The white woman, still pale and shaken, realized that the dynamic had shifted irreversibly. Her ambition, while real, had collided with the immovable reality of his accomplishments. It was a moment of humility, of shock, and of awakening, the kind of revelation that leaves a lasting impression on anyone who experiences it. For the CEO, the moment was quiet but powerful. He had not sought to embarrass or belittle her, he had simply presented the truth of his work, allowing reality to speak for itself. And for those in the room, it was a dramatic lesson in leadership, authority, and the difference between ambition and earned success. The white woman's shock, her turning pale, became more than a personal reaction, it was a visible marker of a profound lesson that would resonate throughout the company for years to come. The air in the boardroom remained charged long after the meeting ended. Colleagues continued discussions, energized and inspired, while she quietly retreated, processing the stark reality. In that moment, it became clear that the CEO's position was unassailable, not because of politics or charisma, but because of the undeniable truth: he had built the airline with his own vision, his own hands, and his own unwavering commitment. Her shock was complete, and with it came the realization that ambition without action, without vision, and without substance is powerless. After the shocking confrontation and the unforgettable moment when the white woman turned pale, the atmosphere in the airline's headquarters shifted permanently. The power struggle that had quietly simmered for months was now clearly resolved, and the CEO's authority was no longer in question. Triumph, however, was not just about asserting dominance, it was about recognition, both from the board and from every employee who had witnessed the quiet but undeniable demonstration of leadership. The CEO had earned more than respect, he had earned admiration, loyalty, and a sense of legitimacy that could never be undermined by office politics or entitlement. The boardroom meetings that followed carried a new energy. Where once there had been undercurrents of tension, there was now clarity and focus. Executives listened intently, aligning with the CEO's strategic vision and contributing ideas that enhanced rather than challenged it. The white woman, still grappling with the aftermath of her failed attempt, was forced to recalibrate her approach. She had hoped to manipulate perception, to leverage influence, and to carve a path to the top, but now she understood that the CEO's achievements were tangible, indisputable, and respected by everyone in the room. It became impossible to contest authority that was built on hard work, foresight, and proven results. Outside the walls of the boardroom, the company itself reflected this triumph. The airline's operations were smoother, teams were more coordinated, and morale soared. Employees who had previously been wary of office politics began to feel a renewed sense of purpose. They could see the CEO's hand in every successful decision, every innovative project, and every moment of operational excellence. It wasn't just about who was in charge, it was about what had been achieved under that leadership. The airline had grown not only in size but in reputation, efficiency, and innovation, an unmistakable sign that his vision was translating into reality. The CEO himself remained humble, as always. He did not celebrate the moment with grand gestures or speeches. Instead, he quietly acknowledged the team's efforts, giving credit where it was due while letting his work speak for itself. For him, triumph was never about defeating a rival, it was about proving that leadership, when exercised with dedication, intelligence, and integrity, creates tangible results. His recognition came not from asserting power, but from embodying it through action, consistency, and achievement. The white woman, meanwhile, experienced a profound shift. Watching the CEO's authority solidify before her eyes forced her to reflect on her own ambitions and the methods she had chosen. She realized that true recognition does not come from asserting oneself over others, but from contributing, building, and delivering results. The lesson was stark, and the impact personal. She had seen firsthand what it meant to earn respect, and she now understood the difference between ambition and leadership. Though humbled, she could not help but feel a grudging respect for the man who had built not just an airline, but a legacy. Employees, colleagues, and even competitors took note of the CEO's triumph. The company became a case study in leadership, resilience, and the power of vision. Stories of his strategic decisions, his hands-on approach, and his ability to turn obstacles into opportunities circulated widely, inspiring others in the industry. His leadership had transformed the airline into more than a business, it was a symbol of what perseverance, intelligence, and commitment could achieve. By the end of this phase, the airline was stronger than ever, not just financially, but culturally and operationally. The CEO's position was no longer merely official, it was unassailable, respected, and deeply validated by the evidence of his achievements. The board, the employees, and even those who had doubted him came to recognize that leadership is measured not by ambition alone, but by results, influence, and the ability to create lasting impact. This triumph was also a testament to patience and strategic vision. The CEO had not rushed to prove himself in moments of conflict, he had let his work, his decisions, and his innovation speak for him. In doing so, he had reinforced a timeless truth: leadership is earned through action, not assumed through entitlement. Recognition, once achieved, became a natural byproduct of consistent excellence. As the company moved forward, the CEO's story became a guiding example for others, an inspiration for anyone seeking to achieve leadership without compromising integrity. It wasn't just a personal victory, it was a corporate and cultural triumph that solidified a legacy of respect, achievement, and inspiration. The moment had passed, but its lessons echoed throughout the organization, shaping future leaders and reminding everyone that success is earned, never given. The story of the airline, the CEO, and the ambitious white woman reached its natural conclusion, but its lessons echoed far beyond the walls of the corporate headquarters. By the time the dust had settled, it was clear that what had transpired was not just a battle for a position, it was a profound lesson in leadership, resilience, and the true meaning of success. The CEO had demonstrated, in the most tangible way, that authority is earned through vision, effort, and integrity, not claimed through manipulation, ambition, or entitlement. His triumph was a reminder that leadership is more than a title, it is the culmination of years of hard work, sacrifice, and thoughtful decision-making. For the white woman, the events had been transformative. The confrontation, the revelation, and the shock of seeing the CEO's accomplishments laid bare forced her to confront her own approach to ambition. She realized that while desire and determination are powerful motivators, they cannot replace experience, dedication, or results. Her earlier attempts to seize control were rendered meaningless against the weight of tangible achievements. In a way, the experience became a lesson in humility, self-reflection, and the importance of learning from those who have walked the path before you. She had glimpsed the true meaning of leadership, and though it was initially painful, it offered her the opportunity to reconsider her own approach to success. The employees of the airline also carried away a critical lesson. They had witnessed firsthand the difference between entitlement and earned authority. The CEO's calm confidence, strategic vision, and tireless dedication had inspired loyalty, respect, and a renewed sense of purpose across the organization. They saw that leadership is not about asserting power for its own sake, but about building, nurturing, and guiding a team toward shared goals. His example became a model for aspiring leaders, showing that real influence comes from consistent action, fairness, and an unwavering commitment to the mission. The board, too, was reminded of a fundamental principle of corporate governance: positions of power must be validated by results, not politics. They recognized that the CEO's achievements were the foundation upon which the company's future would be built, and that attempts to undermine such leadership were not only futile but counterproductive. His vision had created measurable success, from operational efficiency to brand reputation, and his integrity ensured that the airline would continue to thrive under his guidance. At its core, the story revealed a universal truth about human ambition and achievement. Desire alone is not enough, ambition must be paired with skill, dedication, and tangible results. Leadership is not given, it is earned, nurtured, and proven through consistent action. The CEO's journey exemplified the rewards of perseverance, while the woman's experience illustrated the limits of entitlement without substance. Together, their story became a cautionary tale, a source of inspiration, and a vivid example of what it truly means to lead. The broader lesson extended beyond the confines of the airline. It applied to every workplace, every team, and every individual striving for success. True achievement is recognized not by titles, appearances, or assumptions, but by the lasting impact one creates. The CEO had not only built an airline, he had built a legacy of trust, innovation, and excellence. The respect he earned from employees, the board, and even rivals stood as proof that integrity and vision will always outlast ambition that lacks foundation. As time passed, the airline continued to grow, expand, and innovate, a living testament to the CEO's leadership. The white woman, now wiser and more reflective, understood that the lessons she had learned were invaluable. She had witnessed the power of perseverance, the importance of vision, and the irreplaceable value of earning respect through action rather than attempting to seize it. The company itself became a symbol of what can be achieved when leadership is exercised responsibly, ethically, and with unwavering dedication. In the end, the story was not just about a boardroom confrontation or a battle for power, it was about the essence of leadership and the enduring value of hard work, integrity, and vision. It reminded everyone involved, and everyone who would later hear the tale, that true success is never stolen, never given, but carefully built, step by step, through effort, courage, and an unwavering commitment to one's mission. The CEO's triumph became more than a personal victory, it became a timeless lesson, inspiring future leaders to pursue greatness not through shortcuts, but through dedication, creativity, and unwavering perseverance.